Good afternoon. We're close to 1, so I'll get started. Quite a few examples to look at. My name is Joel McCleskey. I am here representing the University of Houston. What I'd like to talk to you about today is database access, specifically using a web interface, both to get the information into the database and to get the information out of the database. These are the areas that I'm going to cover, and the reason that I've placed them in this order is basically because over the last 6 to 8 months, this is the order in which we have moved the progression through how to get information into and out of. At the University of Houston, we use an Oracle 8 installation as our database. It contains all of our growing information both for the internet and for the intranet, both of which I'll look at and show you how we're building those two pieces, sometimes separately and sometimes together. Scripts, and more scripts. I'm going to, in this presentation, always show you an example of the type of thing that I'm alluding to, and then give you advantages and disadvantages of how we use it or why we stopped using it. So we're going to start with scripts, specifically JavaScript. The LLM department is a department in which we needed the ability to have students register online. An online application for students to be able to fill in prospective information for our LLM department. This form was done completely in JavaScript with connectivity to the database. And one of the things that we've discovered is that if you do straight scripting, you have to have an advanced skill level. JavaScript, of course, and people smiling understand exactly what I'm talking about. It is somewhat time-consuming. This is a rather lengthy form. It is the complete LLM application for the law school. You have the ability here, for example, to visit this particular page, start filling in the information, and then realize, oops, there's a piece of information that I don't have handy. Therefore, you can save this information to the database, be assigned an ID, and then within the next 30 days, you have to revisit the site if you want to continue filling in your form. Then you can submit the form to the LLM department. First, I'm going to look at some of the advantages of using straight scripting. Obviously, you have complete control. You can put, if you are an excellent programmer, skilled programmer, there are very few limitations with straight coding. This applies to any of the coding languages, specifically in this case JavaScript. It's flexible. That's part of the reason that people lean towards straight coding. And it's cheap, at least to the extent that anyone can open Notepad and start typing in script. Browsers today, JavaScript built in to your browsers, so you'll have information that you can get out to your clients. Disadvantages. It's very tedious. If you are not someone who wishes to go in as a developer, sit in front of a terminal all day to do scripting, this coding, then you are probably in for a rude awakening. Advanced skill level, as I indicated. This is not typically, and in the previous session I noted attending part of the student, we attempted to use students in our development area to do part of our coding. We have found that that is extremely difficult. We started with some computer science students and found that people don't show up, the same types of things you would encounter with student body. Then we moved to graduate students for straight coding. That was slightly more successful and much more successful in our customer service department, but still lacked the ability for the projects to be completed in what we would consider to be a timely fashion. Finally, I have found that I have expensive even though I had cheap before. Because this is a timely process and because you have to have a highly skilled person sitting there around the clock doing development work, we have found that it is more expensive to have that than not. Now, I am not suggesting that we do not code. With the other programs we're going to look at, you'll see that one of the disadvantages if you consider it a disadvantage, is that you still have to do coding to do some of the neat things you want to be able to do. We're going to move on now to an Oracle Developer Server, and this forms the centerpiece of the intranet for the law school. As you can see, we provide the user with an interface based on Developer 2000 and then serving that out through Java applets that are built automatically by the developer server. That is not to say that a lot of development work did not go into building this package. If, for example, I wanted to search for financial information, we found that our business services office, of course we have a UHIT presence, of course we have a centralized database. We have found that since that database has not been upgraded for financial records, there is a 2 to 3 week gap in that information being updated to give you a bottom line. We were therefore asked to build into our integrated system a method for them to keep up with document numbers and additional financial information. This is that screen. I am connected here to the database, and I can search any of the fields here to be able to display any types of reports. And we have worked very carefully with the departments to assess the needs of that department in addition to the provisions that the central UHIT shop can provide. The LLM form that we originally looked at in JavaScript the information must be viewed by the staff member in LLM. Therefore, this will take just a moment to load. This was not intended to be an intranet available. It was intranet designed, built. It loads a great deal of information about the students. And that is why we use Developer to do that for in-house. So this will take just a moment. In addition to the interface you see here, we also have other intranet projects, but anything of scale, which you will see here, with a lot of information that we want to pull from the database, we use Developer 2000 to do, and on top of that Oracle server. This is going to be the last form that we look at here. Again, I did not intend this as something that we stream across from Houston to Chicago. I'm merely showing you what our intranet shop looks like and what the user actually sees on their desktop when they go in and open up the program. Any questions so far? Please. Yes.
How would you change your design if you were students asking for internet access?
Are students asking to do online applications?
Right.
Is the question. We are moving towards a model where everything that we do is both database driven and web accessible. In that model, yes, students have asked for this. They've asked for a lot of other information. The University of Houston has opted for PeopleSoft as an implementation for the entire system, a downtown campus, Victoria, etc. It promises to have Oracle-driven front-end access through web interface to a lot of the information that they're asking us for. But what we're finding is that the time frame that we're looking at is going to be rather lengthy for that process, so we have already had much of this work in design. As you can see here, a good deal of information can be pulled up about those individuals. I'm just going to do one search for an ID, for example. And I don't want to change that record. And this particular student, the staff member, can view the information relevant to being a prospective and admitted LLM. Of course, phone numbers, addresses, the information that the LLM application provides. Any violations, even an emergency contact number, and a whole list of other information. The one additional piece of this, which I will not be looking at today, but I will mention, we'll open it anyway. The web data this particular form is a method of looking at the information before it is moved to a permanent record. The students do not have access to the root table structure so that they cannot manipulate the primary records. What they are entering and looking at is streamed out in a secondary temp table provided to them by Oracle. That way they're not able to access, for security reasons, their own records. And that pretty much forms the basis for our intranet as far as, again, high-end form building. Now that means that there was a lot of data that required to be streamed out in that particular. The states, for example, have pull-downs, all the country codes. Most of them came from Law Services directly. I'm going to move on now to Oracle WebDB. Oracle WebDB is a product that Oracle sells and intended to basically allow you to build very easy forms and reports for accessing information through its database. For example, we have an online job listing on our site currently in production, running with listings where firms, and not only firms, but other nonprofit organizations can call in and our students are able to access this information and basically look for jobs. But in addition to that, there are law clerk positions here. This is not just for alumni, this is for our student body as well. Information about the job itself, telephone information, contact information, anything you would need basically to find out more about that position with short descriptions. That is what the student sees. Now, how does the staff member get that information into the database? A very simple form. Not very colorful. The only thing that we use here in red is to designate those are required fields. They must be filled in by that person, or the information will not correctly go into the database. You have to be able to do more than insert, of course, to create them. This is the ability to update and delete. And if I wanted to pull that record, any particular record up, I'm provided with the same form, and I have the ability here to either update this information or delete it. This is the model we wish to follow, and I'll answer your question in just a moment. This is the model we wish to follow. We want the staff to be in control of their own information as far as when it's updated, how it's entered. We want to build, as an IT shop, forms, front ends, so that the responsible person in the departments can maintain their own information. Yes, sir.
Would this system give you the capability if someone gave Career Services a job to post and they wanted only students who were third year or GPAs 3.5 or above or that kind of thing, would this give you the capability that when a student logs on, they only see jobs that they qualify for?
The answer is yes, and the reason that we did not go with that model is that it would be specific to the user IDs. In this case, we have one ID provided to all students to see this information, but the answer is yes. It is capable of that performance. We do have that level of sophistication in some of our other projects. We decided not to use it for this particular one. Yes, sir.
You said you offered one ID to all your students to get this information?
Correct.
Does that mean that all your students have access to all the other students' information?
Not at all. This particular project is just for job listings, and they have access to all of the job listings. As I indicated before, we do not give direct access to any table of information in any database directly to students. It is always either a secondary copy or a temporary table automatically created when they query the information. So what is it that the developer sees? I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
What do you run something like this on in the way of software, you talked about some of the specifications or at least some of the details.
Let me hold that question until the end of the session, and I'll be happy to address that. Again, that is what the user sees, the actual listings. We saw what the staff member sees to be able to input that information. Now I'm going to show you what the developer used to actually build the forms and reports that you were looking at. Oracle WebDB provides the developer an interface which is once again completely contained within the database. The only part of this Oracle DB system that is not contained completely within the database are the images. As you can see, it's browser driven, IE or Netscape. For example, if I wanted to build a form, you have a wizard that you can run through to base it on a table or on a query or on a procedure that you have already written. I'm going to run this just to show you which form we're looking at. Again, the same form that the staff member uses to input the information into the database. As you can see, the columns of information from the database show up, and you have a number of options on how you control how that information comes out to the user.
These are all prepackaged?
This is a prepackaged, pre-canned product. Everything that you're seeing here has required absolutely no coding whatsoever. Again, that is not to say that you cannot add coding, and we will look at one tab where I'll give you an example of that. Additional ability to control the look and feel of this product, how it is displayed, the timing. You can show how long it required the browser to retrieve the information from the database, a number of options. Header information, footer information, before, after that is displayed. Yes, ma'am.
Who builds the forms?
In this case, again, we had student graduates that hired from the CS Computer Science Department at the university to build this information. Go ahead.
Our university just purchased WebDB.
Yes.
The intent that, as you said, each unit department will control content. And they expect people within those departments to do this. Do you feel that those people are really capable of doing it, or does it require more sophisticated background?
There's still going to be a little bit of interaction, we feel, with the IT shop, specifically because most of the time, due to the structure of the database, you want everything to fit together. So you do have to have some interaction on the backside. Yes, a user could do this, but let me add a caveat to this, which is a disadvantage that I've listed, one specific disadvantage. So I'm going to leave the examples for a moment and go to some of the one more thing I'd like to show you, and that is what the user would have seen as a developer. Even if that user is the developer, that was the interface they would see. In addition to that, the DBA of the database has additional information I'd like to very quickly show you before I finish answering that question. You can look at the open sessions, for example, in your Oracle database. You can create tables, roles, triggers. If you're familiar with the database structure, you can do all of that via web access through WebDB. Of course, creating a user and so on. You have the settings of your database available to you via the web. Very few of these things are actually able to be changed at this level. Some are not. But at least you have this information available to you. You are able to do, however, the tables, roles, triggers, sequences, all of the things necessary to run a database application. Advantages. Completely browser driven. Everything that you have seen, the building process, what is shown, what comes out of that database, 100% browser driven. It is fairly simple and easy to learn. If you can look at those fields, you can run this product. It's as simple as that. It does not require additional coding. And the thing that I use it the most for is as a web administration tool for the database itself, to very quickly look at information about the database. Disadvantages. Slightly less flexible. Clearly, if you're straight coding, which, again, our end users are not going to do, then it is slightly less flexible and less attractive. What do I mean by that? You don't have complete control over how the information is displayed as far as the columns of information. As indicated by the career services, it's a very tabular sort of display. It is very difficult with that product to get away from that tabular display. So if you're looking for something that is more attractive than just basically a header, a footer, and a menu, and then the information right in the center, then you're going to have to either do additional coding or settle with the fact that everything is going to come out, you're going to click on it and move to the next one, and it's just going to be a straight listing of information. And that's the main disadvantage that you're going to find. But if you can maneuver those screens, then you can find your way through this product. Questions about WebDB in particular? Yes, sir.
WebDB is standard element of the Oracle page software?
It is not. It is an additional purchase from Oracle. Any other questions? Yes.
First one, so user administration. How far deep into the data can allow the user?
As far as, it's a very good question. As far as granularity of security, which is your question, you would have to be slightly more clever. And what I mean by that is, if you make someone a web developer in the world of WebDB, they have the ability to build forms, reports, any of that information can be built. Now, where you get the granularity of security is on the database side. Of course, you can create whatever view or role you so choose. When they pull up that information, they just simply won't be able to see it to build a form on.
No, not to build, but
even to view it. Anything related to the database can be handled with the granularity of Oracle itself. WebDB is not designed to actually handle the security for the user. You can manage it that way, and I could add the roles and the security level using it as a tool, but the database itself has to be used to add those types of constraints and security. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So another question we have here. It's a separate product by itself. It's not an add-on to Oracle 8i.
It is not an add-on to 8i at all. In fact, you can use this product with Oracle 8. You do not require 8i to use this product.
Another question I have. Let's say you said you have your own career services, right? Let's say you have your own alumni program.
We do.
Is your alumni associated with this university? That the university control general alumni for all the schools?
We've been talking about that very point. I recently met with the alumni organization on our campus. Again, because PeopleSoft is coming in, they anticipate taking over a lot of these projects. Their time frame is 5 years, and they just started. So what am I supposed to do in the meantime is basically my response. We can move more timely, much more quickly than sometimes. Once the implementation is in place, we will work out, how the information still provides this information to the user. Right now, there is nothing else. This is it. This is what we have available. Yes, sir.
Could it be effectively deployed as sort of a far-flung, wide area network where those entering the data are really dispersed widely?
Because it's completely browser-based, again, you can build, create anything you want to with just a browser from anywhere.
I guess it goes towards the design. In other words, if it's a Java developed thing, is the performance going to be so bad that it's that far off? For example, we saw examples of it on the earlier slides. We were talking about the other product.
That was intended specifically for intranet. And if you attempt to use Oracle Developer, which is the other product, not WebDB, you will find that performance suffers. You will find that.
But this, it could be deployed.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, the career services is we don't expect them to simply use that at the school. They can use that at home or anywhere they have a browser. I'm going to move on, and if you have, please remember your questions because we have a few more things that we really need to look at. Now we're going to move into Microsoft. This year was the first year that our admissions department requested that we put up a survey to determine if a student was accepted, went through the process, paid their fees, and was accepted, why did they not attend? You will see a lot of this is based on the radios of a sliding scale from the best to the worst case, and a number of topics were asked. Quality of the city, location, for example. Again, that is what the end user saw. Now we look at the interface that was given, some of it, very limited portion of it, that was given to the admissions officer who was interested in that information. All of the responses, one record at a time, displayed on the screen. This is one of the things that was requested as an assessment that the department required. With 98 total responses. Additional statistical information was provided. What percentage of the person indicated the poorest in whatever indicated area, the highest. There were many other reports that we generated. Specifically, the reason that location came to mind is we searched for keywords of location and several other things to determine, is it just the city? The People's Law School is an outreach program by Richard Alderman. It allows for 2 days a year for interested public, anyone, to attend sessions given by our law faculty over a number of different areas. This is password protected because currently we're not allowing registration because the session's not available. Biographical information, how they learned about the event, and also the 3 sessions they wish to sign up for. Again, these were all built, and I did not mention the actual product. It is Frontpage 2000 that we use to build all of the information you've seen for Microsoft. Our continuing legal education program. Their course brochure information, upcoming CLE events, and the actual dates, times, locations, and the entire event itself described. In addition, a list of hotels. And again, this is what the user sees, open access through the intranet. So what does the staff member keeping up with this information see? And then I'll get to your question, sir. Very simple menu, couple of buttons. The staff member in the CLE department fills out this form. Submits the information, and then it is automatically resorted the next time anyone pulls it up. Why don't we try one of these just for fun? I will create a hotel listing, for example. We only have the surrounding cities in the pull down because that is where our actual CLE is given. The events themselves. And as you'll see, the CALI Hotel turns up in this list. It can be sorted by any method. And that's the address that I typed in. Advantages. This is a Microsoft product. It's for the Microsoft camp. If you're a Microsoft shop, then the expectation is you will be familiar with this product and able to use it. Fairly easy to learn, certainly easier than standing around or sitting around doing coding all the time. Slightly more attractive than the WebDB product. Again, we were able to manipulate where things ended up on the screen slightly more easily. And in fact, with WebDB, that's a little more difficult thing to do. And of course, compared to scripting, straight scripting, it's a time saver. It's a real time saver. We have found tenfold, thus the expense on the disadvantage of straight scripting. What's the disadvantage? It's a Microsoft camp. Okay, if you're not a Microsoft camp, you can still use this product, but you'll find it extremely difficult to do. Still requires some coding, as I indicated before, and obviously it costs more than opening Notepad. We're moving on to Dreamweaver UltraDev, and I know we have a lot of questions, so let me get to some of those now before we move on. Yes, sir?
If you're using Frontpage, what are you using the database for?
Oracle. Same database. We have one database installation, Oracle 8.
So you're using ASP to extract the data from the...
That is correct. Additional questions?
Browser compatibility.
It does take a browser that is capable of displaying the information. We have found, though, that even Netscape 4.2 and above will have no problem with everything we've seen today. Yes, ma'am?
Why did you submit products?
Okay. The reason is, again, we looked over a 6 to 8 month period of what tool to use. I mean, for the last half year to a year, we've been groping with, again, the student issues, the same issues you've heard here today. It's been a natural flow for us. This is the very method that we have gotten to where we are, or at least with these forms of information. We are migrating most of our information over to the final, and I'll give you those in just a few minutes. But I am actually showing you the chronologue of what's been happening at the University of Houston over the past year. And that's why we have so many different production products in the various things that I'm showing you. Yes, sir?
Just can't see on account that the WebDB product, that was exclusively server-side, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Except for one thing, and that is validation. For validation in that product, you have to use JavaScript functions. You create those functions, you store them inside the database, and then it pushes that information out for the client to do the validation, not the server. Yes, sir?
This is a Microsoft product, so you are seeing for access.
Because there are two reasons I did not go with Access. Actually, there's a lot of reasons I didn't go with Access, but let me give you two of them. In order to build an integrated system, in my opinion, you need a full relational database server. And I don't care if that means Microsoft SQL, and I don't care if that means Oracle 8, 8i. You need a server in place to be able to look at all of the things that we are looking at today. It would be extremely difficult to pull together, even using straight ODBC or other connection methods, the information I have looked at today. And it would be very time-consuming. We're going to move outside of the Microsoft camp, for those who are not interested in the Microsoft camp, into Dreamweaver UltraDev. This is a relatively new title for the product, but this actually stemmed from a product known as Drumbeat 2000 in the Macromedia Suite. Online information for being able to say, look, I have a problem. Computer help. This is my information. It goes into the database. We've actually been working on, we use Remedy, a product which is based in Oracle, but obviously built by a company. Because it is Oracle-based, however, we can work with that information very easily since we have a single Oracle 8 information. That means the front end to that particular interface is actually a product that was purchased, but again, it's based on Oracle 8, so all of the information is easily manipulated within the database. simple interlibrary loan form. I need a book. The reason I don't have more examples of UltraDev is that it is a new product. The name was released very recently, and if you already have Dreamweaver, then you'll feel very comfortable with this product. Actually, the upgrade cost, if you already have Dreamweaver, I think for educational is $99. You can do all of exactly the same things. Nothing has the same name in Microsoft as it does in Dreamweaver, obviously, and every product has its niches. Every product has the things that you have to learn how to do in them. But connectivity is not that difficult. Therefore, you will find that the advantages and disadvantages of using this product are very similar to Microsoft Frontpage 2000. Note here, however, that it doesn't only support ASP, that it supports JSP and even ColdFusion. Again, that's part of the Macromedia suite.
Any ColdFusions?
We do not use ColdFusion at all. Yes, sir.
On Dreamweaver, can you have it like email results as a form to certain people?
We've had that question asked repeatedly, and many of those forms that I have shown you were originally in the form of email. Straight Perl coding, simply emailed it to the individual responsible. We have found that it's difficult to keep up with statistical information for that, and the answer is yes. You can dump the information into the database and have a trigger automatically fire to send out that information to that person's email, just like you can with straight coding. The reason, of course, to put it in a database is that you want to be able to find out more about your shop, what kinds of questions you're getting, and so on. Other questions? Yes, sir.
How different is Frontpage from UltraDev? Because I have Frontpage, but
The interface is slightly different because they have, of course, used the Dreamweaver to model this product. In all honesty, if you are comfortable with Dreambeat, you would have absolutely no problem with UltraDev. It's not that dissimilar. Additional questions? Yes, sir.
Are you using any transactional processing, any of these forms that you're working with?
They're all transaction-based. Redefine your question for me.
well, I mean, using together the NT that the transaction server would have.
Oh.
Like on a list of 3 forms and then not letting it go to the database and follow certain criteria.
Because we're using Oracle, we have not actually jumped on board with that particular method. All of that is handled by either PL SQL in Oracle itself or just simple validation before it ever gets there. It's a good question. Yes, ma'am.
Forms that were constructed with one, say you started with Java apparently, can they be brought into these others? Is this a progression that now that you are at Dreamweaver that you can pretty up the forms done in Java?
Let me address that in the following way. The question is, are we able to, for example, take our Microsoft Frontpage 2000 ASP forms and open them directly in Dreamweaver UltraDev? The answer is no. However, the reason for this is because the connectors that make it possible to get from point A to point B are not the same. Okay, they are specific to the product. However, what you can do is basically open up a new UltraDev form, then copy and paste the actual HTML/JavaScript validation. All of that information does not have to be replicated. Even the validation of the ASP can be used provided you don't use the web bot, in the case of Microsoft, to try to connect to the information. You have to get the product itself to create the connector. Then after that, you're okay. So it's an issue of opening a new one, copying and pasting the information in, and then you do have to go through the reconnection process of which ODBC connection do you want to use, and then you mask basically, here's a column list of the table, here's a form list of the field names. You simply click a button and in both products you do this, by the way. You just match them up. The names don't have to be the same. They have nothing to do with each other except that you have to do that connectivity piece, and then the answer to your question is yes. Other questions? So, what did he say? You know, where did we go? I'll come right back to you. What did we end up using so far? Cradle-to-grave operation, once again, the intranet presence in mass when you want to pull up a lot of information and stream it out to the web. We use the Oracle Developer product, as you saw. I'm leaning against WebDB, and I hate to say that in that you just purchased the product. Oh, fine. ostensibly it looks very attractive, right? I mean, and it is very easy to use. Do not let me throw you. It is a very simple product to use. But if you really want to do some of the things, and I'm not saying the sophistication of the product will not increase, but currently it has limitation basically in the attractiveness. It's a straight tabular sort of display. I have decided thus far to use that product as an admin tool to do exactly what I suggested earlier, which is giving the ability for other people to be able to create roles, triggers, access to the database. And then finally, in our shop, UltraDev wins out slightly over Frontpage, partially because of the ability not to rely on ASP. Okay, we feel that we will be in a better placement by using this product, but again, it's very new. It's based on an old technology, but it is relatively new, and I understand they actually released it at the beginning of this month, although we've been using it for some time. In short, we see more and more information moving to the database. More and more, even the simplest things on our web are ending up in the database because we want the individual departments to be able to manage, maintain that information without IT intervention or support. Make it a project. Get an assessment, create the forms which give them the ability to get that information into the database, work on how that information is streamed back out, and then move on to the next project until it's time to look at that project again. Additional questions? Yes, sir.
Do you have any need or desire, anticipating desire to go down the cold fusion route?
Currently, no. Primarily because we don't want to move so far off some of the straight HTML standards, XML standards, that we get into cold fusion, and that's what we have to rely upon as a proprietary product. Yes, sir.
This is a big question. If you wait till afterwards, you can have an answer. And I was curious as to why you chose Oracle over, say, SQL Server.
There are two reasons. One, we have a site license at the university. And that's a big one. That's a simple answer to a big question. We had already gone with Oracle. I started using Oracle long before 7.0 came out for Microsoft SQL, and SQL 6.5 was not the most stable or even easy to use product. So part of the answer is we were already using database for client server instead of web interface, so we already had it. And the other answer is our university site licensed it and even took my license away from me so that we could have an umbrella license for a lot more money.
Do you need, this is the last question, do you need full-time database management?
I knew someone was going to ask that question. Let me address that the best way I can. Okay, I am midway through actually having an Oracle DBA. You do need someone, if you intend to live in a database, who can work with that database. Of course, disaster recovery, of course, everything I have to say. I don't know about your UHIT shop, but we have a good UHIT presence as far as MIS and as far as the DBAs. Unfortunately, they don't have enough time for us, meaning the law school. We have found that, again, long-term, perhaps the solution is UHIT Central. We believe it is, thus with the PeopleSoft project that we're on board with. However, what are we doing now? What are students asking for? What kinds of information are we being required and asked for today that we could go ahead and deliver and then step on board with the university? I think all not just UHIT, but I think IT shops in general are burdened with tasks. And it's very difficult to get the kind of help you need down to the divisions and colleges. The university, now let me jump on the other side of that and say, I actually work for the operating system group for the University of Houston. I am part of UHIT. Those people I've been talking about this entire time, I am them. It is a pilot project for the law school to get more service out to the end users. The salary is split. They pay part, we pay part, that kind of thing. In addition, I have two bosses. On a day-to-day basis, I report to Associate Dean Gary Hartman, who is here in our audience today, and for issues of PeopleSoft, issues of Windows 2000 rollouts, and how we fit into the university scheme, I work for Fran Beach. So to answer your question, on the one hand, I say there's not enough personnel. They are testing this model to see how it works to get everything pushed out to the divisions and colleges. Additional questions? Yes, sir.
Could you compare and contrast the three approaches in the context of hardware? And also, if you
just lay out from the operating system up, just very briefly, the layers of software required, a brief statement of the costs for those three as
Some of the costs, again, are going to be difficult to discuss because we have a site license. So I no longer even know all of the costs associated with it. I will tell you that if you want to run a relational database, and I think you should, of course I'm biased in that way, look at spending $10,000 on service contracts for all of your products. There are some discounts, but on the other hand, your information is all going to live in that database. Historically, we have had Paradox, DBase, FoxPro, you name it, and we've had it. We are eliminating it daily by using the methods that I'm showing you here. So it becomes more of a stable product. Now, as far as hardware, we are running this on a fairly meaty machine in our case because in addition to the Oracle installation on this machine and the web server which you see here, we also run sort of a CD-ROM server on it, so it has a lot of space on it just to be able to dump titles. It's a Compact ProLiant 7000. It has 2 processors in it, a gig of RAM. It's a meaty machine. Now, I don't need that kind of machine to do what you've seen here today. I would estimate that we have less than 1 gig of actual raw data. But we have a lot of other things running on that machine. And in fact, we have a SQL installation on that same machine because that's where we started. We run SMS and a whole lot of other things. So again, we've consolidated some of that into a relational database server. Now on top of that, of course, you have the software, Oracle 8. On top of that, we have WebDB and Oracle Developer Server. So don't misunderstand. This will be costly if, 1, you don't get a site license, or 2, you choose to use so many products. Again, as I have indicated, we don't intend to end up using this many products. Does that sort of address your question? The server has 300 gig on it before anything was added to it. Yes, sir.
On the UltraDev versus Frontpage, does UltraDev require like the equivalent of the Frontpage extensions?
It does not. It does not.
And will it run on a Unix or Sunbox?
You know, I honestly don't think so, but I don't know the answer to that question. I'm sorry that I didn't look to see what other platform specific it would run on. I believe it does run on Unix. There are limitations. That's what I was about to say. I think it will run on one of those, which is some of the Unix platforms, but I believe you'll find that there are a few limitations to that. I'm sorry. I've almost completely ignored the audience in the top portion here. Yes, sir.
Exactly how big is your IT department in the law school?
Again, I understand that I work for and have been assigned to the law school. There's one other personnel member in the law school because it is the pilot. We have a full-time customer service person named Sharon Gibson, who's here with us today, who takes care of the student body. We also have used students historically to not only staff our labs, set up our machines, but also to help our faculty, staff. We're a full-service operation as far as that goes. In addition, we have 2 other full-time people. One is I want to call him a land administrator because, again, while I take care of the servers and the land on a daily basis, overall, on a daily basis, things like user accounts, dealing with SMS inventories, that sort of thing, Mr. Roderick Jackson, and then finally a full-time person named Jan Cunningham, who is our student administrator. She makes sure that the help desk runs smoothly beneath Sharon Gibson, of course, and also works on the student machines, all of our public terminals for the library and for the law school. We have used for the development side, which will address just some of this. Of course, I did not do all of this work. I'd love to say that this is all of my work and I'm here today to present it. Of course, this is not the case. We have hired, as I said, initially 2 students. Then we hired 3 graduates because I found that student employees, it was very difficult to finish these projects. And then the PeopleSoft project actually stole 3 of my developers. Stole is a generous word. They received better offers. So don't get me wrong, you do have to have a small development team to do this. We have actually looked at some of the costs of outsourcing, and we're still, as with everyone, groping with that issue. But you are going to need more than 1 person, unless you want them to sit there and do this all the time, which is conceivable.
How many faculty and staff members do you have? How many users have faculty.
Inside,
And students, but, so my understanding, you're servicing the law school, you have like 6 people, 5, 6 people altogether?
full-time people, we have 5, 2 from outside the shop and 3 in, obviously.
Okay, and you are,
I'm part of that 5, yes.
okay, so you got 5 at law,
Yes.
5 IT staff.
Yes.
Designated for one school. How many units do you have for faculty and staff? And how many units do you have as student body? So did you service as well? I understand.
Yeah, of course, fully serviced, that's correct, and with a help desk operation as well. Say 1,200 students, and we have over 325 actual stations. Well over that, actually. I would put it closer to 400 actual stations, so that will give you some idea of the staff and faculty. I give you the number on the computers because, of course, if more than one student body uses a particular machine, it really doesn't make sense to count them. However, they are still part of customer service responsibilities, so I don't have that exact number for you. But if I gave you an overall, I'd say 1,600 people plus. Other questions? Fantastic. If you have anything else, again, my name is Joel McCleskey, and thank you for coming.